I'm Shawn.
And I'm Mike, and you're listening to
Shawn and Mike Take a Hike.
Welcome to another episode of Shawn and Mike Take a Hike. What are we going to talk about today, Shawn?
So today I want to talk about dealing with insects on the trail. So I thought we could cover like the different types of insects that you and I encounter, how we deal with that, different repellents we use, different clothing options, that sort of stuff. Like anything related to like keeping the bugs at bay as best as we can.
The real creature comforts, keeping the creatures away.
I know. I mean, yeah. As anybody that's spent any amount of time in the woods knows, I'm sure, like, there's no way to totally keep the bugs away, but we have definitely had some different things that we've tried.
And, I mean, realistically, you and I haven't had the worst of luck with bugs on the trail, and I would also say that I found that the bugs are probably the worst on the trail. By the time we get to a campsite or whatever, and we get a little repellent going or fogger or something going, then we tend to keep them at bay. I shouldn't have said that, I guess, because we're going in a week, and I've heard some the flies are bad right now. So
well, and you're right. I mean, we have been pretty fortunate, but partly that's on purpose. I mean, it's partly because of when we picked to go, which we can kind of talk about weather and how that impacts it and stuff too. But at the same time, we have tried, various different bug repellents, various different types of clothing, various different, like, non-repellent methods, like homemade, try this, see if this works type things, clothing treatments. Like, so we have tried a fair amount of things, and even when we get to camp, we take a little, insect coil, incense thing, whatever those things are, to burn.
Right.
So I just thought we could kind of go over all those different things that we've tried, what we find that works, what we find that don't work, all that.
So maybe we can say what works for us because what we do has, I guess can't say has been proven to work, but what we do has so far worked. Like we haven't been scared away from a trail.
Wood. Yeah, right. So knock on wood of some sort, we've been pretty fortunate so far. We haven't had any had to abandon the plans because the bugs are too bad type of things yet.
But
yeah,
so go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I've got my little list of things that I wanted to talk about. I'm sure you have a few things you want to talk about, so maybe let's just jump right into some of the tried and true things that we have. So, first and foremost, I wanted to list my bug net. I had not really used my bug net too much until this last trip that we took. I was getting swarmed by bugs this last trip. I don't know if you were. I was getting swarmed by them. I was getting mosquitoes and little gnats and all that stuff flying in my ears. It was driving me absolutely nuts. So for the first time in the last 4 years, I actually got my bug net out, put it over my hat, put it over my head. Highly effective. Really wasn't as bad to wear as I thought it was. I really kind of thought it was going to not work that well, block my vision, all that sort of stuff. I was pleasantly surprised on how well I liked it, actually.
Okay. See, I still haven't used mine yet, so because the bugs were not bothering me as bad on the last trip. So
yeah. Well, I just found they kept flying into my ears, and it was driving me absolutely nuts. I'm like, you know what? I got this thing. Let me try it out. So tried it out. Yeah. Very effective. Did not impede my vision in any way. Kept all the bugs out of my ears. Kept them out of my nose. Wasn't swatting at the back of my head for it anymore. For those of you that don't know me, I am bald. So when a bug lands on my head, you really feel it. And so bug net in combination with just a baseball hat worked super well. Loved it. Couldn't say enough good things about it.
Perfect. Yes, like I said, I haven't tried mine yet, but if the flies are as bad as I was reading where we're headed, then I might be trying that out this coming trip. One thing that you and I are pretty hefty on too for the flying insects are pretty reliant on is our DEET. I know it's not great for you. I know it's not great for your clothing. If you wear glasses, like your smartwatches, your phones, your devices, things like that. It's not great for it.
Yeah.
But it is effective. So
I know. DEET
I try to use it sparingly.
Yeah, you try to use it much more sparingly than I do. I am a big fan of DEET. I know it is awful, but man, does it work. I mean, and I even have a couple of different DEET things. So, like, my normal bug spray that I have, right, for my, like, spray on my body, I've got some, like, Deep Woods Off type, regular bug spray. Like, you would pick it up to take camping or whatever. And that one I want to say is, like, 25 to 30% DEET. But then I even went a step further, and I got this, like, 100% DEET, which I think is actually like 99% DEET. But
you're just spraying pure DEET basically on
pure
you.
DEET. Now that one,
might as well just take a DEET bath.
I do try to keep that one off of my skin as much as possible. Which here's the problem with DEET for anybody that doesn't know. I mean, it's not great to have on your body. But also, like Mike was saying, like it eats at synthetic synthetic fabrics, including like plastics. Depending on what your watch surface is made out of, it can eat at those. It can eat at your glasses. It can eat at, and especially that 100% DEET stuff that I carry. Like it is.
Yeah, when I'm using that, my watch is coming off, my glasses are coming off, my hat's coming off. I'm setting everything a decent ways away from me. I go spray, let that dry, then I'll go pick up my stuff and put that back on. I don't want to risk. My glasses are expensive and I need them to see.
Yeah.
And I don't want to ruin my Apple Watch. We all know how much those cost.
Yeah. So, I mean, not only is it like eating at your skin, I mean, especially anybody that's got sensitive skin, I would say use your DEET with caution. Any of those synthetic fabrics, like it's going to eat those synthetic fabrics. So, like, depending on what your clothes are made out of, even, it may or may not ruin your clothes. Hard to say. Depends on what you got, But then it also, like, for anybody that has never used it, it fucking stinks. Like,
stings the nostrils.
Like, it stinks. It has
hold your breath.
A caustic odor to it. Like, it is not good. Unfortunately, it really works really well. Like, I have not found anything for me that works as well. You have what is that stuff that you use instead of DEET? It's Picaridin?
Picaridin. I've heard it pronounced numerous ways. It's more of a natural, with air quotes, solvent, and it's not dangerous to use. It's kid, dog, pet friendly, whatever. You obviously still don't want to swallow it, get it in your eyes, that kind of thing.
Sure.
But it's clothing safe. It can get on your devices without causing harm. I've just gotten in the habit when I'm putting sprays on or whatever to take my watch and glasses off. I don't want to spray my glasses and then I got to clean them. So I had this Picaridin. It was a Facebook find, but now I see it all over the place. I find it's very effective for me. I don't seem to have many issues. I don't know if I don't tend to get eaten up as bad as you and Deb, my wife. She gets bothered all the time. Like, I can just sit outside with a little citronella candle and I'm fine. And she'll be swatting at bugs and all that, and I'll have to go get something else, or she'll have to spray or whatever. So, but yeah, the Picaridin really, really seems to work for me. I don't think you don't seem to have the luck.
You've got that like little balm thing that you use.
I've got a balm and I've got some sprays. Yeah,
I have tried both of those. Neither one of them did a damn thing, as far as I could tell. For me, I mean, but I am unlike you. I am one of those people that mosquitoes, flies, all that. I mean, I don't know what it is about me. Maybe I'm just super sweet. I don't know, but like, the bugs like me.
I think it has to do with your CO2 levels.
Well, maybe I'm just full of hot air. I don't know. I mean, whatever it is.
There it is.
I mean, could be. I don't know what it is, but I did not find that Picaridin to be nearly as effective. I don't want to say it didn't work at all, because, like, I'll be honest, I wasn't out there wearing nothing at any point. So I can't say as though it didn't work at all, but it did not work to the level that I would want it to work at for me being out in the woods.
I've never done those studies where there's a box with 1,000 mosquitoes, you know.
Right, exactly.
Type of thing.
I mean, and then the only other thing that I always read about Picaridin too, like, even if it does work for you, yes, it is a more quote-unquote natural or a safer product to use. For those people that it does work for, I have read that it can be as effective as DEET, but the caveat to that is, by and large, everywhere you read about it, it says it doesn't work as long as DEET works. So you are going to be applying it more often.
You do reapply it more often, yeah.
So, I don't know, do you find that to be the case for you? I mean, you use it a lot more than I do.
Yeah, I tend to, anytime we stop, or if the bugs are starting to get bad and we stop, like I'll reapply or whatever. But if we stop and we're just shooting the breeze or whatever, I might reapply. But I really haven't found, like, I tend to apply before we start our walk, and then I tend to reapply when we get to camp, because when you slow down, you get swarmed a little bit more just because you're not moving anymore. Right. So you tend to reapply then, but I don't find that, again, though, I don't get swarmed or I don't get bothered all that bad anyway. So, but yeah, I don't find that I have to reapply more, but I can't speak on behalf of everybody. It's just another product that I found that I like, that, like I said, I like it just because it's a safer product for the skin and for your devices.
Yeah. And then both DEET and the Picaridin or Picaridin or whatever, however you pronounce it, I'm not sure. Both of those really effective for the same types of bugs, from my understanding too. So that's going to be like your mosquitoes, your ticks, and your flies.
Your horse deer flies, all that stuff.
Your quote unquote biting flies, right? I mean, that's what they usually say. So I think that those
as your SWAT knives.
I know, I got flies buzzing around me just even right now. So I need to get some DEET on. But so then what else though? So, like, because I know there are, I mean, we say that the Picaridin or whatever is a more quote unquote natural product, but then there are actual natural products that you can use too.
Peppermint oil.
What is it? Lemongrass, I think that they always say.
Lavender.
Eucalyptus.
Yeah.
So there's some of those natural oils you could try.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on those?
If they work for you, they work for you. I haven't found them to be as effective. Again, I don't get swarmed all that much, but, like, I find them less effective than what, like, my Picaridin or anything like that. I do find that, like, the essential oils, you do you, but I'm not a big believer in the essential oils.
Yeah, I know. I got one of my really good friends is, like, a huge believer in, like, the essential oils, and she'll make us, for, like, our regular camping, she'll make us, like, here's a spray bottle I made up for you with some essential oils and some things, and you can spray it around, you can spray it on your dogs and protect them, and I can't tell if it works. It smells nice. Right. I love the smell of the stuff.
Absolutely.
I can't tell if it really works or not.
Right.
So I'm kind of in the same boat that you are. Like, if it works for you, listener, by all means, use the natural stuff. Like, if that works for you, use it. I don't find that it works for me. I don't know. Maybe it's because I don't fully believe in it that it doesn't work for me. I don't know. Is it like mind over matter type thing? I don't know.
Right.
Try it out. If it works for you, like, okay, so I just saw a thing on TikTok the other day. It was like mixed together. I want to say like vanilla and cinnamon is supposed to be a natural bug repellent, or I could be wrong on that, but like it was this and okay. If it
there
works
was
for
another
you, great.
thing I was reading that apple cider vinegar, like a tablespoon of that a day, is supposed to make your body give off a repellent or whatever, so like they don't want to come around. But if you can stomach apple cider vinegar, then go for it. I'm not.
Well, see, I can stomach
for
apple
that.
cider vinegar. I almost think that'd be worth trying. If
Yeah,
I mean, how
give
far
it
in
a go.
advance do I got to do it? I guess.
But I did not read that far into the article.
I mean, if we're talking like a couple of days before we go, like I could stomach it for a couple of days before we go.
But you would probably want to continue it while we're on the trail.
Yeah, but if I only got to take like a teaspoon or a tablespoon for each day, that's not that much. I'm carrying more water than that.
Well, fair. Or I wonder if you can just put it in your water.
I don't know.
Digested just the same, right?
Maybe we'll have to circle back to that. Yep.
So, another one is on a similar side of the Picaridin is a permethrin, which I personally haven't tried the permethrin stuff.
Okay,
yet.
So I have, and I guess if we're to that point, we can talk about that. I'm kind of a believer, I got to tell you.
Oh yeah.
So
okay.
Yeah,
I've been wanting to.
Before we went on our last trip, just a couple episodes back, we talked about that. But yeah, I sprayed down. I went to the local sporting goods store. I bought some topical spray. So this isn't like, so there's different, so let's kind of talk about this in two parts. There's
different levels.
There's different levels. Like you can get, from my understanding, there's like the spray that you can spray on your clothes. That is permethrin.
Right.
And then there is like a clothing treatment that you can do that like infuses your clothing. So there's kind of two different levels. So I did the spray on type. The spray bottle says it should last on there for like 5 to 7 washes.
Okay.
This was my first experience with it. I sprayed all of my clothing that I took on that trip. I sprayed my backpack and I sprayed my tent down with it.
Okay.
Now, I really think it made a difference.
So I didn't know you sprayed your tent.
Yeah.
And I know that I had a couple of ticks on my tent.
I had no ticks on my tent. I had no ticks on my tent. I
never
found any ticks on my person. I never found any ticks on my backpack. You had, 2 ticks on your clothing?
A couple on my clothing. I know I had 1 or 2 on my tent after we got it set up.
None on your person, though?
None on my skin that I had to take off. No.
Yeah. I didn't find any on me at all. And
right, yeah.
I did not spray. I sprayed my head with bug spray. Because I was saying that I had the bugs before I put the bug net on.
The net on, yeah.
But I did not spray myself or my clothes with any sort of DEET, which I normally would do.
Right.
Did not spray myself with any of that on any of my clothing. Still was good.
That's right. I thought that was odd. We were when we got to the trailhead, I sprayed myself and you did not.
Yeah.
And I thought that was odd.
Yeah. I wanted to try it. I wanted to see how it went.
Okay.
So
you didn't spray your hat?
I did not spray my hat.
Okay.
I wonder if I had. I wonder if that would have made a difference.
That, or I wonder if spraying your. I mean, the purpose of the bug net is keep the bugs away from your face anyway. But if you were to spray your bug net, I know it's full of holes, but I'm sure the permethrin would attach to some of that. But would inhaling what you're wearing, I don't know if you would inhale that or not. So
yeah, I don't know about that. I don't know if I'm ready to do all that.
That's something else to look into.
But
parking lot that.
Yeah, we'll circle back to that. But I gotta say, pretty impressed with the permethrin. Like, or I just got lucky. I mean, so I've got one trip under my belt with it. So I don't know. But
and you're wearing. I'm not sure you're wearing the exact same clothes, but are you gonna?
I'm taking the same gear. I'm wearing the same clothes next time. We'll see how it goes.
Okay.
And
I might have to go grab me a bottle of that.
That is my hiking gear, so I don't wear it in my daily life. So it should still, it's had 1 wash since then. So it should still be, quote unquote, treated for this next trip.
Okay.
So then alternative, but in conjunction with that, there are also clothing treatments that you can get, or you can buy permethrin infused clothes, which from my understanding is a different treatment process than just buying the spray bottle of stuff. I don't know what the process is, but they call it, well, everything says it's infused into the fabric. So in my head, I don't know if they're like vacuum bagging it to get it sucked in there. I don't know if they're like dry cleaning it in this stuff. I don't know what they're doing to infuse the clothes, but supposedly if you get the infused clothes, that stuff doesn't wash out.
Wonder if it's like pressure treated, like your pressure treated lumber or something like that. Yeah,
I don't know what the process is. I'm not a scientist, but supposedly if you get your clothes or your gear infused with this stuff, then it doesn't wash out. Supposedly it lasts for the lifetime of the garment. I don't know.
Hopefully it's not garbage garments that just fall apart.
Hopefully.
And that's why it's like
right, exactly. But like, I know you can get,
an option too.
I know you can get socks. I know you can get pants. I know you can get shirts. So I can't say I recommend or don't recommend it, but the spray stuff worked. So I got to imagine the infused stuff is good.
Yeah, and I saw the socks, and I shared that with you, and I was like, this is interesting. Like, you won't necessarily have to douse your ankles with DEET or whatever, because it should keep the bugs away from your ankles. And for hiking socks, we talked about it in our clothing episode, they weren't any more expensive than your traditional hiking socks. So I was like, well, I think my next pair of hiking socks is going to be permethrin infused, and we'll go from there. So the shirts and everything I saw were more expensive than I'm not going to say I wear junk t-shirts on the trail, but I don't wear my best clothing on the trail. But like, the clothing would be more expensive than what I would consider typically wearing on the trail. But if I was buying it specifically for that, then I might consider it.
I mean, I could be persuaded. I'm not going to say I couldn't. I mean, based on my experience so far, and again, we'll see if it keeps up, but like, so far, pretty impressed with it.
If there's no negative health side effects to wearing it, and which I haven't looked into that either, but like, I wouldn't imagine it would be out there if it was like, well, these clothes may cause cancer, type of a thing.
That's the thing. So, I mean, at the end of the day, it is a chemical, right? So I think you're going to run into some of the same, if you're a person with sensitive skin or,
for sure. Yeah.
So like, I do think that it is still a chemical, not as harsh as DEET from my understanding, but it's still a chemical. So,
Well, and I would imagine it's probably not as harsh as any of the sprays that you could put on you, because this is just in your clothing. I'm sure you're going to sweat some of it onto you, but I don't know. If it stays on through washes, you're not getting that much on you.
Okay, so that's exactly one of the points about this stuff, though, is because it is, I don't want to say it's waterproof. I don't know if that's the right word to use, but like, if it gets rained on, because it can go through a couple washes. So like, even if your clothes get wet, it's still going to be on there. Even if you're sweating a lot, the repellent's still going to be on there. Yeah. So that is like one of the things that they say about this sort of repellent is that it actually is good for, is it going to be rainy because it's not going to wash away? Or like, if you're spraying yourself with DEET, right? Well, that's not waterproof. So now if you do get wet or you do sweat it off or whatever, you have to reapply it. Supposedly this permethrin doesn't have that same problem. And again, I sweat a lot this last trip we were on. Now, I'm not you, it was my clothes that were treated, but like I didn't find it was less effective the longer in the day we went. So
yeah, the only thing, and I mean, I guess you did say in our last episode that you could talk for hours about repellents. So but the thing I'd be curious, because I did not look as deeply into the permethrin clothing and all that stuff, and I think that's more or less, I found that not wearing the synthetic fibers of the moisture wicking t-shirts and things like that were better for me to keep me dry because of the amount that I sweat. cotton is king, in my opinion, as far as t-shirts go, because it absorbs the moisture.
Yeah.
It doesn't just drench my pants. It doesn't just wick it away and drench my pants.
Yeah.
Type of a deal. So maybe I should stick with the clothing that I use, but maybe get the treatment and be able to infuse it myself or whatever. Because there's a dipping process or an infusing process you can do yourself, right? Isn't that what you said?
I don't know about being able to do it yourself. I haven't actually found anywhere you
but
could
at least
like
the
do
sprays.
the sprays. You can do yourself. The spray I did myself, and I bought a fairly big squirt bottle of it. Here, I'm actually going to grab it because I got it handy right here. So this is the one that I got is 24 ounces.
Holy crap!
It comes in a spray
it's
bottle.
It's like a Windex bottle.
Yeah, it's like a Windex bottle size. And it did, like I said, it did my tent, my backpack.
Yeah.
2 pairs of socks, a pair of pants, a shirt, and I still have probably, I mean, you can't see through the bottle, so it's hard to tell, but I would say I probably have a third of the bottle left.
No kidding. So if you got a new t-shirt or whatever.
I really drenched the stuff. Like, I really sprayed the stuff down, and I have quite a bit left.
So just so we know, more or less for me, I'm going to be selfish here. you sprayed it down. You sprayed it down pretty good, and then you just let it dry overnight, or just let it when it dried, you were good.
So funny you should ask, because like I was a little bit nervous when I did it, because I did it the night before we went on our last trip. So I'm out in the driveway spraying this stuff down, and I'm like, and stuff's getting real wet, right? Like I'm really spraying it down. I'm like, oh crap! Like maybe this was a bad idea to do the night before, because now I got to wait for all this stuff to dry. Well, it dries in my experience anyway with this brand. It dried like you sprayed it down with alcohol.
Really?
Yeah, like it dried quick. Now, in all fairness, I had the stuff out in the sun, but it was like evening sun. It wasn't midday sun. Right. It dried real quick. Like walked away for 5 minutes, came back, everything was bone dry. And then and then you flip everything over and spray it down again, and all that sort of stuff. But was really super impressed with that.
Tomorrow and get some.
Now, back to your other thing about can you do the do-it-yourself at home, not the spray-on kind, but the infusing kind. I have not found any do-it-yourself at home infusing systems. But there are services you can send your existing clothes and gear to, and they will infuse it for you.
Okay.
Which makes me think that there's like a process involved. Don't know what that process is, but it makes me think like I would think if you were a company and you were starting a thing to infuse clothes and there was an option for people just to do it at home, I would think that is what your product would be. So the fact that the ones that I found were send us your clothes, we'll infuse it, and then send them back, for that to be your business model, I imagine there's a process involved with it.
It's not just filling a bucket or whatever and then dunking your stuff and letting it soak for hours.
That's what I'm thinking. So... so there are those services out there. The couple that I saw, which I have not used them, so I don't necessarily want to name them. A quick Google search, I'm sure you'll find the same thing. I don't want to vouch for them because I don't know if it's any good. So that's why I'm not trying to say that their name. But like the one that I found that I was looking at pretty extensively the other day, like the prices were pretty reasonable for what it was. I thought
you got to cover shipping. I'm sure. You got to get it to.
No, like they send you a package. You put all your stuff in this package, postage paid, goes to them, they treat it, postage paid sends it back to you. There's different price points depending on how much stuff you're having them do, but like it looked pretty reasonable as far as I'm concerned. A little bit pricey, but not crazy. I mean, that bottle that I bought was $20, so...
I mean, ultimately, you're paying for the shipping.
For sure.
Because
it's
postage paid, but you're paying that. You're paying for their product, their services, their time, all that kind of stuff. It shouldn't be free. They should get what they deserve for it.
Oh, absolutely. No. Yeah. I did not feel like they were gouging people. Like, I felt like you were paying for what it was worth. And I do think that their prices seemed like they were on par with what I would expect to pay for something like that. I didn't get sticker shock when I clicked on the pricing.
Okay. I mean, I don't have enough time to do that before next Friday.
No,
So
not for this time. But like, I didn't even know
well,
that
by
was
the
a
time people are
thing.
listening to this, it could be as early as tomorrow.
Right. I mean, I didn't know it was even an option, to be honest with you, until I started doing research for this episode. And then it's like, oh man, that's not. I might look into that.
Right. And I think we just had ours drop yesterday, so it'd be 2 weeks. So we'd already be back from this next trip by the time this drops.
We will be back from the next trip by the time this one goes out.
So I had a great time. How'd you do?
Right. But yeah, so that's really the story on the permethrin. Limited experience with it, but so far I'm in love with it. So
okay. I'm intrigued. Like I said, I didn't do as much research on that because I am more I've always just used sprays and all that kind of stuff. So the permethrin, I think I'm going to go buy a bottle this weekend, and I got to start getting my stuff ready anyway.
Well, so I had always been like the spray guy too, right? Like we said earlier, I love the DEET, right? For what it's worth, this does come in a spray bottle, so it is still a spray. It's just a different type of spray. But
you don't spray it on you.
You don't spray it on you. Yes, this is not a body part spray, so it is only going to work on your gear and your clothes. What really sold me on it was, well, we mentioned in one of the previous episodes that this last hike we took, they were supposed to have really bad ticks there. And like everywhere I read it was like, oh, this hike is great, but it's got super bad ticks. Oh, this hike is nice, but it's got super bad ticks. So I'm like, all right, I don't love ticks. I don't need to be getting no Lyme disease or nothing like that. Right. And everything I've read for the past several years is that this permethrin is really good for ticks to repel them. So I thought, well, if not now, then when? You know?
Right, yeah.
And if we're going in this area that is supposed to be super bad with ticks, let's try it. Because I was willing to try anything to keep the ticks at bay. And again, got to camp, 0 ticks. Got back to the vehicle, 0 ticks. So
was this the trip that I also, maybe I didn't have any ticks last trip.
You did. I remember you had 2 when we got to camp.
Yeah.
Because they were in your.
So I wonder if the ticks were supposed to be quote unquote super bad, if you led a good portion of that way.
Yep.
So I wonder, and I don't know how quick ticks move or whatever or what, but if you brushed up against something and a tick got on you and then it wasn't available there to get me, but then if it's on you and it's just like, nope, don't like this, and it just got off of you. I mean, I don't know how all that works, but I'm just wondering if that had something to do with it. Right.
I don't know.
But it could have.
Okay, but in all fairness, there's no way to know. So we're not going to be able to definitively say either way.
Right.
But if you recall, when we finished that hike, we got to the parking lot at the same time as I'm assuming it was a father and son duo, who did not go nearly as far as we went. And they were talking about how bad the ticks were.
Yeah, they went about a quarter of the distance we went, and they were saying how bad they were.
So, I don't know.
Yeah, there could be something to that. I'm intrigued. Like I said, I'm going to go buy a bottle this weekend and douse my clothes and my pack this weekend and my tent.
It is not going to hurt.
So did you set your tent up and spray it while it was all set up?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Perfect.
I mean, I didn't stake it in and all that sort of stuff, but I put the poles on and had it set up.
Let's not get ridiculous.
Yeah, right, exactly. But it is. You have spent $20 on worse things in your life.
Oh yeah.
You know?
Oh yeah.
So
I buy 50-50 every hockey game I go to for $20. Haven't won.
Well, and supposedly this stuff is again good for mosquitoes, ticks, and biting flies, which you already mentioned where we're going. The biting flies are supposed to be super bad. Ticks not so bad, but the biting flies are really bad. I would say let's do anything we can do to help alleviate that.
Well, and I was just thinking part of that area we're going to be walking through, it shows is going to be a little marshy too. So that's breeding grounds for mosquitoes. Yeah. So, okay, well, I'm sold. I'm going to go pick some up.
Highly recommend. Limited experience, but highly recommend.
That's another reason I love doing this, is that it gets you and I to research things again that we normally would just like, we're going out on the trail.
I know.
We're just going out on the trail, and we don't need to learn anything new.
Yeah.
Well, turns out you can always learn something new, and we're teaching each other as well as hopefully helping others at the same time.
We'll put a link on our website for the brand of stuff that I got. If you're interested in trying it, you can get to a link through our website.
Yep.
But yeah,
which is
ShawnMikePike.com.
There you go.
But so then you kind of mentioned something. I guess, did you have somewhere else you want, or what do you want to talk about next?
I was just going to move on to other strategies besides sprays, but go ahead if you had something.
So yeah, okay. Well, same but different. I mean, you mentioned like the part of the trail that we're going to is going to be a marshy area.
Right.
We know that before we're going into it. One of the tips and tricks that I will share with the listener is, for any of you that don't have a designated camp spot, like if you're going somewhere but you didn't have to reserve a spot, you're just out in the back country, you're just backpacking somewhere, setting up your camp wherever is convenient for you.
Right.
One of the tips to help with the bug situation is stay away from those marshy areas. At least where you're. At least where
we're going right to it.
We are hiking through it, but I do not imagine we will.
Well, right. We're not staying by.
So
any kind of standing water that looks stagnant, just
standing water, the low spot. You're hiking through the trail. You get to a stretch of it that's muddy. Maybe not the best spot to set up camp. Like,
I would hope you were not setting up camp in the mud anyway, but sometimes you might not have an option.
You might not have an option. That's the thing, and depending on how far you want to go or can go, maybe it's all marsh where you're at. Maybe it's all wet where you're at. Maybe it's been the rainy season and you don't have a choice because everything's been wet for weeks. But if you have the option, try to not set up camp where the bugs breed.
Yeah, for sure. That's exactly where I was going, is just the camp location. Pick your camp away from the standing water, dense vegetation, things like that, just because that tends to be where bugs are.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point, too, the dense vegetation. I mean, you get to a spot where there's lots of shade all the time, even if it's not necessarily always wet there. Right. Like, vegetation attracts some bugs, so try to get an openish area.
Well, if there's vegetation, that's where it can get ample water to grow. So therefore, it is a wetter area.
Yep.
So that's going to be a place for it. If you're in a Michigan type area, the timing of when you go doesn't necessarily work out so well, because the time that we get to go hiking when it's nice out is usually bug season. So that's one thing for the other climates, is that pick your time when you go when the bugs are less prevalent in your area. But but can I, like right now, the June bugs aren't so bad, so hey, you're not going to get bombarded with June bugs, but earlier in the spring maybe.
Can I make a comment on that though?
Sure.
So I don't disagree with what you're saying. However, the whole reason that our annual hiking trip is every August is because our first one that we planned was in August, and it was in August on purpose because that was supposedly when the biting flies were the least bad.
This is true. Okay. So we do plan some around
We do kind of plan around it. I mean, that was the whole... When you and I first went, we picked August on purpose because that's the quote-unquote dry season with where we wanted to go on our first hike.
See, being the fourth trip in, I forgot about that being part of the reason for August. I just thought that was when we could get time off work.
No. I remember it was like December, January... We're doing all this research about where do we want to go the first time. And then it's like, oh, beware of the biting flies. And then it's like, okay, immediately following that, when are they the least bad? I mean, they're the least bad in December and January. But
it was usually, they start getting, in the warmer time frame, they start getting the least bad around August. So it's usually late May to early July that they are the worst.
And the reason for that is because that's the rainy season, and then August is usually dry, and then by then the flies start going to the wet areas. So I mean, it's all related. Is I guess that's the only point I'm trying to make is, okay, yes, you might not have a choice, but if you do have a choice, like if you're a beginner and you're only going once this summer, well, check out when the dry season is where you want to go. You know?
Yeah, for sure. So, yeah, I guess if you can use timing a little bit, research the area you're going to. There's our do your own research part.
There it
is. We knew we'd get it in there. But look where you're going, see what's prevalent. There's going to be a Google search out there. Somebody has looked for it before, so there will be something that tells you. Or I'm sure there's going to be a Facebook page or a Insta page or X page, whatever, that you can go and ask that question, and somebody will be nice enough to tell you.
Yeah, for sure.
If you get to camp and you are in an area where, even if it's not all that marshy, it's not that wet, doesn't have all the green leafy vegetation, all that kind of stuff, but you're still getting bombarded with flies, campfire.
Okay.
Campfire is a great way to, if allowed, campfire if allowed. Good caveat.
Listen to our Can I Have a Fire episode for more about that.
Right. Yep. But if you get your fire going, and we all know if you get it hot enough, even if it's a little fire and it's hot enough, it doesn't typically have all that smoke, which most of us prefer. But if you're getting bombarded with bugs, if you throw a little bit of wet wood or some of the downed greeny stuff, that will create smoke, and the bugs hate that.
Yeah.
So that's a way too. If you're running low on your repellents or anything like that, and you are getting bombarded with them, just try to create some kind of a smoke in your fire when you're at camp, and that will help you out too.
And if you're not comfortable having a fire, or you just don't know if you're going to be in an area that allows fires, we take Mike has a little citronella candle. It's a little tiny tin.
Yep.
I think it's Coleman brand, if I'm not mistaken.
It is Coleman brand. I believe it's s'mores scented.
Oh, is it? I guess I didn't notice that. But I mean, I as much as we were kind of poo-pooing on like your natural stuff earlier for like, I don't want to say we were poo-pooing on it, but like I'm not a big person.
It's a citronella, which is more of a natural oil.
Yeah. And I do think that those citronella candles work. So, we always light that up when we get to camp. And
yeah, well, I that or one of those, like we mentioned earlier, the incense coils. One of those type of deals. And we mentioned in our Creature Comforts, I think it was that episode, the Thermacell.
Oh, I forgot all about her. Thermacell, yeah.
Yeah, the Thermacell that attaches to the butane propane gas mix canister that you spark that up, and that lasts for a few hours too. Yep. So there are other things that you can do, even if you do have a fire and you don't want to create the smokiness, because let's all be honest, we all prefer to stay out of the smoke. You can take those with you. They add a little weight and a little bulk to your pack, but those coils I bought, I want to say it was like a 6-pack that came in a tin. And I take one per night. Well, I really don't even need that because they burn so damn slowly. So if you're going to bed and you still got some coil left, just break it off a few centimeters or a centimeter away from the hot part and throw that into your little coals of your fire. That'll keep that going for a little bit. And then you can, once it cools down, you can pack that with you in the morning.
Yep.
So,
I like those coils.
That's why I like those coils.
Yeah, I like the coils. I like your candle. That Thermacell we used the last trip, I thought that worked really well.
Yep. If I remember it, I will get the links to those as well.
Okay.
And we'll get those on the website too for any of this stuff, because it's these are definitely comfort things, but they're also necessities. I mean, you can get diseases and you can get sick and infections if you do not take care of these things.
That's the thing. I mean, depending on the part of the country or the world that you're in, I mean, mosquitoes carry. I mean, what's the big one in our area? Zika, West Nile. Which depending on what your general overall health is, could
swine flu, I think.
Yeah, I mean, carries all sorts of stuff. And then like the ticks, which I guess I'm not positive if those candles and stuff, I'm not positive that they repel ticks, but like I think they just do the
Thermacells. The Thermacells I think do, But realistically, ticks, you're not typically going to be sitting around in the taller grasses and ferns and things like that. And that's typically where unless you're in a nest, but like that's typically where the ticks hang out, is they try to grab onto you while you're walking past those ferns and things like that.
Yeah.
So,
so I think whichever one of those options, if only one of them fits into your pack or whatever, pick whichever one you think works better for you. But I do think if you're going to be overnight backpacking, right? Like if you're staying somewhere overnight, if you plan on sitting outside and there's going to be bugs in the area, I don't think it hurts. They don't add that much weight. They don't take up that much room. They're all the options minus the thermosol. The thermosol's a little bit of an investment, but the candle and the little incense things, minimal cost to them.
Well, and the thermosol thing too. If you're somebody that either is going to be cooking on the stove or you're not cooking, you're doing your PB&J smush sandwiches or whatever, and you're not cooking, don't invest in the gas just to bring a thermosol.
Right.
Bring something else or get a battery-powered thermosol or something.
Right,
so, Yeah.
So no, that's great things. The other thing that I did want to mention, just to go back to clothes for a minute, because I forgot to mention it when we were on clothes, is you always have the option of like long pants and long sleeves too. Like even just regular not treated stuff, long pants and long sleeves can help. Keep some of those bugs off you, especially like you're biting flies and stuff. Like, I mean, some of these flies, for anybody that's never been out amongst these flies, some of them could give two shits whether you got repellent on or not.
They're the devil. They are. I mean, horrible.
There is stuff here in Michigan that just does not care if you have repellent on or not. There is like no repellent that works on them. You might need long sleeves and long pants. I don't care if it's 90 degrees out. If you're going out there and doing it, you might need long sleeves and long pants on. So,
for sure.
That's always an option. I just wanted to say that before we move totally on from clothes, even though I know we kind of already did. We have another thing that we haven't even mentioned yet that you and I do.
Okay, go ahead.
For ticks primarily, the backwards duct tape. We've mentioned it in other episodes, but we didn't mention it here.
Yeah.
So do you want that was your idea. Do you want to go over that one?
Yeah, I mean, it's another, I think it was before I had TikTok. It was a Facebook Reels, or even before Reels was a thing. It was some video I found. It might have even been on YouTube, but a guy was just boasting. It might have even been a video or something on the NCT page on Facebook that the guy was just boasting about how his duct tape trick worked again to keep the ticks or whatever. And I was like, okay, I'm intrigued. We're heading to the woods for our practice hike. This was even before our very first hike in the Porkies. And I was just trying to do this research to figure out anything and everything I could because, like I mentioned before, my wife is definitely afraid of ticks and grossed out by them. So, I mean, she was like, you better not bring any ticks home. So, trying to do everything I can for that. But his little trick was just taking duct tape, wrapping it around your leg inside out, tight enough to where it's not falling down. You don't necessarily have to stick it to your clothes, but you can. But you just wrap it around so the sticky side's out. If a tick starts crawling up your leg, it gets to the duct tape and just gets stuck there.
Yep.
So it's perfect. I've gone as far as to tape above and below my knee because sometimes they'll get past it or they'll get onto my leg at the knee or whatever. I'm not going all the way up to my crotch, whatever. They shouldn't be able to get in there anyway. There's just holes and there's places because I'm usually tucking in my shirt. I'm tucking in my socks, like all that kind of stuff. Just a deterrent of them, preventing them from getting further up. And then the beautiful thing about duct tape is if you need to use a fire starter or don't have a fire starter, duct tape it'll just go up in a spark. It's great for starting fires. It doesn't burn clean, so don't do it if you don't have to.
Right.
But
not super environmentally friendly. But in a pinch, you can use it to start a fire.
Yeah, in a survival situation or everything is a little bit damp in your pack from sweat, whatever, and you got to get your fire going. If you have duct tape on you or if you used it for your ticks. And it also teaches the ticks a lesson because you're burning them. So
But Mike and I have been doing this pretty consistently for the last 4 years. I wouldn't say every time we go out, but almost every time we go out.
Almost every damn time, yeah.
And the proof is in the pudding. Like, you will get to camp with ticks attached to the duct tape. I mean, it works. Like, surprisingly, it works. Now, you're going to get a bunch of other shit stuck to it, too. Pine needles, fern debris, all that sort of stuff.
Sticks if you happen to fall down.
Sticks if you happen to fall down. But it works, and it does catch the ticks. Now, I'm not going to say it catches all of them, and I would not use it as your only line of defense against ticks. But Mike and I talk a lot about ticks. For anybody that doesn't know, or anybody that's not from Michigan, we have had deer ticks in Michigan for forever, basically, which by and large do not carry human diseases. The winters have gotten so mild in Michigan that over the last 5, maybe as much as 10 years, we have had like an explosion in the tick population like we have never had to deal with in our entire lives. So I know Mike and I talk about ticks quite a bit, but it's a fairly new thing for us because we just haven't had it here. Usually, or historically, the winters have been so bad that it kills the ticks, so you don't get that boom in the population. We haven't had a harsh enough winter. So
I remember going to like state parks as a kid with the family, doing back then what I used to consider glamping.
Yeah.
But we were just camping in a pop-up at the, my folks back in the day, they would just send you to the ranger station or send you to, away from the campsite for the day.
Right.
And so you'd go to the ranger station, they had these little activity booklets and all that kind of stuff. And it's like, locate this, locate that, and be mindful of ticks and all this kind of stuff. And like, what to do if you see a tick. And then like, getting all afraid of ticks for like forever in my life from when I was a young kid. And then I saw the first one in my life, I think I was 37. Like they just recently in the last 5-10 years have gotten bad. So that's why like we bring it up, is just because it is relatively new, and we know how, you and I deal with them a lot more than our spouses do, but we have learned about them, and we try to educate because everybody else is just in our area anyways, just as new to them as we are, I think, anyway. I always thought I was a little outdoorsy as a kid.
I mean, I would say, and I mean, just while we're on ticks, I didn't even have this on my notes to talk about today, but while we're on them, if you are in an area of the country where ticks are prevalent, or especially types of ticks that carry disease, know before you go, know how to remove ticks. The key is to get them off
absolutely
sooner rather than later. I believe the general rule of thumb is, get them off intact. I believe the general rule of thumb is less than 48 hours. So,
as soon as possible,
do a tick check. Mike and I do tick checks every night that we get to camp. Make sure that we're not covered in them. Get any off that we've got on ourselves. Throw them into the fire or do whatever you can do to kill the bastards. But we carry little. We used to carry a little tick spoon. It's a little plastic spoon thing that's got a groove in it. That pries it up. We have now upgraded to these little tick removal. I don't even know what you call it. It's like a little
picks.
Yeah, it's a little thing that just clips to your pack. Pulls the whole thing off all in one. But know how to get it off. And if you are concerned when you get it, at least in Michigan, I would assume in other states they have a similar thing. There is a way through the DNR to report the type of tick that you had on you. They will inspect it. It helps them track, the tick population and all that sort of stuff. But to let you know if you need to be concerned, if you can't identify it on your own, to identify whether or not it is a disease-carrying type of tick, not whether that tick actually has a disease, but whether it's the type that carries disease. They will let you know with that. So,
like in Michigan, we typically have the deer tick, which are identifiable with they got the white spot on their back and all that stuff. We also do have, I believe, we have the Lone Star tick. I'm which I haven't personally seen. They're not as prevalent as the deer ticks in our area. But Michigan does have them. I think they are like the southeastern part of the state, but typically, But yeah, know where you're going and what's prevalent in those areas, because those Lone Star ticks can carry worse diseases than the deer ticks.
Yes. And I mean, so just, take it off. If you need to take an extra little plastic baggie to save the tick in, if you're concerned about the type of tick.
Right.
You and I have done that where we've taken it back to civilization with us just to make sure that it's not a dangerous type and all that sort of stuff. They make little wallet cards you can get that will help you identify what type of tick it is. But yeah, really try to get that tick off as soon as you can to help prevent if it does happen to have a disease, the sooner you can get it off, the better. And then just in general bug care, bug treatments and things like that, not even necessarily tick related. Just remember, try not to itch at things. Try not to break the skin if you have itches. We've said in other episodes, the backcountry is its own type of fake sanitary because it's not really sanitary at all. You don't want to walk away with an infection or something from scratching too hard. Your fingers are going to be dirty because you've been out in the woods. Try as best you can not to scratch at stuff.
Well, that's where your first aid kit comes in a little bit too, because if you do get bit or you have an itch, we always take like a hydrocortisone cream.
Yep.
And we take antihistamine tablets or whatever, and any kind of like an aspirin or Advil or whatever, things that will help with those symptoms. And always, I'm a big proponent of, I take a few alcohol wipes, I take hand sanitizer, things like that. So if something if you do break the skin and you do need to put a bandage on it, clean it if you can.
Yeah.
So a little bit of sanitizer. It's not going to be the way you would clean it at home.
Anything's better than nothing.
Anything's better than nothing, and you got to deal with it for a couple of days. It's not going to get gangrenous in that time. We hope anyway.
Hopefully it's not that bad.
But right, so it'll sting. But put some alcohol on it, put a bandage on it, keep it as clean as you can while you're in the backcountry until you can get it home and properly clean it.
Yeah.
So
yeah. The only other thing that I have on my list that I wanted to mention is something that you and I actually have not tried yet, but that we will be trying on our upcoming trip for a bug repellent option. This is one of these crazy things I saw on the internet. People swear by it. We are going to try it.
I don't think you've mentioned this to me yet.
Dragonfly clips.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yep.
So there are these ridiculous looking dragonfly, fake dragonflies that are on like a spring that you can clip to you that supposedly, according to the internet,
dragonflies are the king of the insect world.
Dragonflies are the king and other insects hate them. Supposedly it helps repel bugs. I don't know if I believe it. We bought some. We're going to try it on this coming trip and see if it works.
So basically, with all this, we'll report back.
Right.
We won't know what of the new things is working.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll be able to report back if the bugs are horrible, nothing worked.
Sure.
But
if we're surrounded by biting flies, even with our dragonfly clips, we'll be able to say it didn't work for that.
Well, right. Yeah. So my new permethrin clothing and my permethrin sprayed clothing and the dragonfly clips and my Picaridin, all that stuff, I won't be able to tell which of what is working. But as long as it works, I guess that's the key, right?
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to say it's a win. If the bugs aren't bad and they're not bothering us, we'll do it all again the next time.
Right. Well, it's not like those dragonfly clips are that expensive.
No.
They're little pieces of plastic. Just try to put them on a spot where if you bump a tree that they don't fall off and you just leave them in the woods. Because again, we got to hit the leave no trace.
Right.
Yeah. And bring back everything you took out with you.
Yep, for sure.
Yep. Except for some footprints.
Yep.
You can leave those.
Leave some footprints and take only pictures.
Yep. On that note.
Right. That's all I got. Did you have anything else on your list?
No, that's pretty much all I had. I wanted to make sure. I didn't think we were going to have time to cover the first the first aid stuff. So I'm glad we got to squeeze that in. So,
all right. Well, as always, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns about anything that we have said over the course of this podcast, you can reach us on our email. It's ShawnMikeHike@gmail.com. We're on all the major socials at Shawn Mike Hike. You can check out our new website, ShawnMikeHike.com, where we will have links to all of our episodes, as well as descriptions for those episodes, and a link to a lot of the gear that Mike and I talk about over the course of this podcast. If any of these episodes have been particularly helpful to you, or you think they would be helpful to a friend, feel free to share that. It certainly helps grow the listener base. Rate, review, and subscribe wherever you are listening to this. It certainly helps with that as well. And aside from that, I guess go take a hike, Mike.
Yeah, go take a hike. We'll see you in a couple of weeks.
We'll see you guys in a couple of weeks.